Hi, speaking is Ruth Kenner, and today I want to talk about my sewing machine and how it goes from function to function or project to project. Now I know domestic machines have been able to do this for a long time, but what is different since it's totally computerized or totally digital? It's been digital before, but everything is digital. What's really changed is how smoothly it does it, and that was a surprise for me. I'm basically a quilter, but sometimes I like to sew clothes. Sometimes I like to do home decorative items, curtains and pillows and things like that. And sometimes when I'm quilting, I like to do art quilts, and I love to use different kinds of fibers and different kinds of threads and all different things to kind of make it special when I embellish it or when I piece it together. Usually I'm just doing poplin, but who knows. But what happened before is I would really procrastinate quite a bit because it was such a hassle. Sometimes I would write down the tension and then I would go back to it and the tension was different. And I like to only have one domestic machine, but I ended up buying an old jalopy for a while just so I didn't have to do that transfer over. It wasn't as hard, or I wouldn't procrastinate. I got this machine, I really love it, but what I really found out when I did do specialty fabrics, that because of the ease of everything being digital and because the Bernina did a really good job checking out the tension and what it needs to be, I literally save so much time, so much hassle, and end up procrastinating a lot less. But today's video is mostly going to be looking at the computer screen, and then I'm going to show you the results and how beautifully it works, because the proof is in the pudding. But I'm going to show you the items that I use so you'll know what I'm talking about before I begin. So go ahead and bring it over. I'll start with things that have nothing to do with the sewing machine. I use Bottom Line by Superior Threads. I use them on all the bottom bobbins, and no matter what the thread is calls for on the machine, I seem to use this and it stays fine. And that way I don't have to change over bobbins, and I don't have to have as many bobbins. I have to have many colors, but not as many bobbins. The other thing that's not part of the machine that we're going to use is this. It came with a beautiful stylus, and this is being hacked. It's by Clover. I could see it's got two edges. It's a very good item, but the reason that I'm using this is gravity and my clumsiness took over for the bobbin, for the stylus that it came with. So I dropped it. I didn't realize it. I got up and I stepped on it and I broke, and I haven't been able to get a new one. Even though I saw them for sale quite a while ago, now I don't see them anywhere, and until the problem works itself out, I'm with this. Now, the other thing I'm going to talk about when I'm sewing has to do with the sewing machine. This is the stitch plate, and this is the one that it came with two that the machine came with. That hole is for the needle. That's for quilting and for sewing fine fabric. And you can see there's a little red dot box, so the machine reminds you of it. The other thing that I purchased is this one. It's kind of faded now, but you can see it's a 5.5 width. I use it for utility stitching, and I pretty much keep it on all the time when I'm sewing anything but quilting. All right, and it used to be standard, but it's not anymore. And this one, even though I'm not going to use it today, I'm going to show it to you because it really works beautifully for decorative stitches. I enjoy using that all the time. I like to use the smaller one that I showed you before, basically because I don't want to use that wide of one. But if you don't purchase that one, you can always use this one. That's why I'm showing it to you. It's really great for all my decorative stitches, and it has a bigger show of it. You could say it's wider, and I used to just have to double up and do more lines, and now I don't have to. So that's basically what I'm doing. And the other thing I'm using is that I'm hoping to do a video about this. This is the 97D stitch and foot, and I could talk a lot about that, but this show we want to go over just the overview. This is a 2A. I had the 2, but I broke it after 25 years, so I got the new one, 2A. It works beautifully. The 1C, the machine came with it, and this is the 5. And those are the 4 feet that I'm going to be talking about. The other thing is when I'm going in and out and I'm replacing things, I always like to show people something that's really important to use, and that's this echo. If you could bring the camera in, please. You could see right there that echo button. Okay, when I press that, it's going to come out, and when I press it, it comes back in. And the reason I use this is that I want to make sure that it's as if my machine is off. So when I change stitch plates, I know that I'm not going to hurt myself and damage the machine, but mostly damage my hand. Nothing will happen. It won't make any changes. And the other thing is if I'm going to go up and I have to go to the restroom or I'm going to take a break, I could do it on this, and it uses up a lot less electricity, hence the green leaf and the word echo. So let's get started and take a good look at the screen. So let's take a good look at the screen right now. Like I said before, this is an overview of how to go from function to function, so I don't want to get too much into the weeds here, but I am going to show things that are really relevant to our discussion here of going from project to project, or sometimes just function to function within the same project. We take a good look here. This number is 525, and you can see it's a picture of the tension of the upper thread and the lower thread. What is amazing about this is just perfect. It works every time. No more hassle where I'm going and what I'm doing, but if there is a problem, you can always change it. Go like that, change it, make it stronger. I'm going to go out. I could do a whole video on how to do this and how to set it up for different threads, but that's not what we're talking about this time. We want to really do a little bit of a talk about it. This is the foot, whatever foot you're using. Now, I am going to say that there is an upgrade that's available, and I'm hoping to get it. There's also a 770 Plus. This is the 770, the older version. And I can upgrade it, and it'll change everything, but the new one will have a screen, a larger screen, where the upgrade will make it do everything except for have the larger screen. But everything I'm showing you today, except for the foot, it will be the same. The newer version, and I really want that upgrade, will change the foot around, and of course will give a lot of more stitches and does a lot more with the Bernina stitch regulator. But for our discussion today, everything is going to be the same except for maybe that foot. This is the foot tension that also changes. We won't see it change today. And this stitch plate I'm going to talk quite a bit about. The other functions here, it will tells you whether or not your foot is, your feed dogs are engaged or not. So not a big deal. Okay, not for, at least for us right now. Okay, the other functions I'm not going to really mention that much about. Okay, right here it tells you when you stop, if the needle's above or below. That I will mention just a little bit because it does change. Right now we have utility stitches right here. That's the utility line. You can go right through. I can show you all of the stitches. Right here, there's a big collection of utility stitches, and just to go out because I want to show you what happens. Depending on what you're doing, the tension does change, and it seems to be right for what it does. I'm very pleased with it. I would recommend, if you are stitching a lot, just to experiment to make sure it is right for you, but it does change quite a bit. I'm going to go back to that so I can show you some things. Here's the decorative threads, decorative stitches. Because I'm using the 97D foot, that is, and I'm using the single hole throat stitch plate. I won't, there's no need to show you this because nothing will come out, nothing will change, because the machine will automatically know, and therefore you won't change needles. All right, so let me get back to this and put on one. We have the alphabet, that's the same thing. It has two extra languages besides English, but it doesn't have my other language, Hebrew. So there you go. Okay, and we have the making buttonholes, also really good thing. I didn't show you all of that because time I don't think will allow it. So here is where I spend most of my time with this. These are stitches that are specially made for us quilters. So that's really a nice thing that you can go over there without any hassle. But if I was to go right here, and I'll open it up again and show you at the beginning, right here I have 3 different straight stitches. And let's say, you know, what's that about? So I could just do the question mark. You could see that again right there. There's the question mark that comes up, and that means when you put on it, press on it, it'll say Quilter Security Program or whatever foot it is, whatever stitch it is, or whatever questions you have for the icon. So this tells you that's the Quilter Securing Program. I do use that, but not that much. And of course I don't do this each time because now I've gotten used to the machine. This is a quilting straight stitch. It's a longer straight stitch. It's for machine quilting. It's also really good for top stitching when you do want to do a triple stitch for jeans and heavier material. I use it a lot for that. And here's where I spend most of my time is the 1326. It is a straight stitch and it's a little bit shorter, and I really like it. If I press on it, it'll bring me back to the basic screen, and you can see it is a shorter stitch. And it also recommends doing 1D, but once I start using it, it might come up 1C. Again, when I get the upgrade, or if you buy the newer machine, it will actually let you put in which foot you're using. I use the 97D foot for this. But take a look at this. This is the 4.0. This is the tension. That's the really big deal. I can go from there to there with no problem, and I've tested it. It works beautifully. So let's say right there, you see the switch to 4.0. That is a really big time saver. Okay, so let's say and this is really the case, I'm busy stitching, and I decide I want to make a blouse. And it used to be a really big hassle, and it took me a lot of time. But now, what do? I go right into, see this icon, the dress form? That is what we call the sewing consultant. I press on that, and let me get back in. And right there, it has the different kinds of fabric. Let's say I want to know what that one is, the one on the edge. I'll just show it to you. It's fake fur or real fur. Very nice. But what really I couldn't decide, I knew it was woven, and I couldn't decide if it was going to be this one or this one. So I just press the question, and I get lightweight woven, lightweight silk. I know none of this was appropriate for what I was doing. So I pressed this, even though I was pretty sure it was going to be medium weight, and this worked. Okay, so I have that pressed already. I'm going to press it again, and you go right in, you see all these icons. So we start with the straight stitch, and right away it's going to tell me what it recommends. If I press the X, it goes right back out, but I want to go back in to this, and it'll bring me right back in. If I want to go to the top, it'll go right there. I press on the dress form again, and it takes me back. But I want to be here, and I want a straight stitch. I'm beginning to sew. So it tells me, we'll start right here, polyester 100, weight 2 ply. Like I said at the beginning, I use bottom line 60 weight. It's very lightweight, and though Superior does make other threads that are, I think, so fine, but I have found that it's easier if I just keep everything with the bottom line, so I don't have to switch around my bobbins. I don't like transitioning to new things and having it a hassle. I like starting new projects, but I don't like the hassle of it. And this is basically keeps it that way. Number 1, I really follow it. And 1C, you could press any one of these. You could press the the little plus sign, and it'll tell you which something about why it recommends doing it. Sometimes it has little instructions. So I go back in, because I didn't press the check, it'll take me right there. So we're in here, and if you notice, it'll be the 1 foot, and the needle, because I listen to what they say, and they recommend using the top stitch, I think it is 70 needle. I stick with the needle that stays with that. Remember, it's a consultant. I don't have to listen to it, but I do listen to it for most things around here. And the important thing that I really listen to it for, when I press the check right there, you could see it goes to that tension. Now, I do test the tension to make sure it's correct. It was spot on, and I'll show it to you later. It also slightly lengthens the thread, the stitch length. So if I do clear, you could see it goes back down. And all I have to do if I do press that is I just press the question mark, that check mark again, and I sew. And let's say I'm sewed up several seams, and now it's time to go to the next step. And like I said, it used to be I have to take the tension, I have to experiment, but this time I am going to just press on that icon. Again, it tells me 100 weight, 2-ply, and I stick with a 60 weight, 2-ply, bottom line by Superior. The other thing, and this, I keep the same needle, so I keep on going with that. It says the 2-stitch. I was surprised, but it is the right stitch to do. It says use 1C. Again, this is a consultant, and I use the 2A. Now, why do I use the 2A? I find that for doing the edges, it really works well, and I could do a whole new video on how to use the 2A correctly, but for our discussion today, I just want to show how I go from project to project and how this really saves me. So I press this, and right away you can see what's happening here, okay? It changes the tension. That's beautiful. It will show up, unless you have the upgrade or the newer machine, it will show up 1C, and you can't really change that. When I get the upgrade, I will be able to, but that doesn't matter how much it sews. The other thing it does is it automatically clicks on the needle up. No matter what you press, it does the needle up. And on this, I usually keep the needle up, but on the previous one, I put the needle down. Okay, so that's the one other change that I make. Now, why is this in red? Because I didn't change the stitch plate, and it's telling me that I have to. So I go ahead and I change the stitch plate, and I'm actually going to do that. It's very quick, and the reason that I do that, even though you can't see it, is I have a rule in my life that if I do and let me get the echo here so I don't hurt myself. And the reason why I do that is I don't change the screen unless over to something else unless I change the actual product, so I don't ever break a needle or do something to damage the machine. So I've switched that over, and you can see what's going to happen. Right there, it goes back to white, and the machine is telling me that I'm good to go now. Okay? The machine won't recognize that I have the 2A, but will recognize that I don't have a machine foot that's a C or a D. It will, so it will recognize that it has a narrower width, even though it's not telling me that. So I'm going to sew along. I really recommend, besides using the 2A for this foot, for this procedure, I would recommend doing it twice. I don't have a serger, and even though I only want one domestic machine, I would really love a Bernina serger. But for right now, I don't have it, and I'm getting along with this machine because it's so amazing. All right, so I've done all that, and it is time to go on to the next stage. Let's say I finished everything off, and I'm good to go. So if I didn't show you that, I would press this and take care of that. It also goes through, again, it calls for 100 over 2, and I continue in with the bottom line, and it works fine. And then I go to finishing it. Now this is the hem stitch, and this is really amazing. It calls for the 120 over 2. Again, I quite honestly stick with the 60 weight over with 2-ply. That stays the same. I stay with a 60 weight bottom line by Superior, and I will show you after this how amazing it looks and why it works really well. The 9 stitch is great. Oh, and I keep the same needle, so I don't forget to tell you that. And the 5 foot that I showed you, I absolutely love, and I keep that. It'll have a little explanation right here of why I use it. Okay, so let's get out of here, get back in. I press plus, and you can see it's all set up to go. It is really amazing. Now, I love going through my books, and I love seeing YouTube videos and on how to do things. But sometimes when I'm sewing, I don't want that hassle, and this is something I don't use that often, and I forget how to do it. So I go right in here where it says book. I go into techniques, and you could play around and learn so much going through this and have a good time. And I go right on blind hem, and it has a whole explanation, but I know how to do this. I've been sewing for a long time, but what I don't always remember to do is how to fold it. So right there I have that picture of how to fold it, instructions on what to do. When I'm done and I'm ready to go back to quilting, all I do is go back, press this button, and then go back to the stitch plate, and I go back to 0 and I change the stitch plate out, and I'm good to go. Like I said, I only change that when I'm actually changing the stitch plate, and I'm good to go. Now I'm going to show you how beautifully this sews. This is an amazing thing. I have some demonstrations how I went from one thing to the next, and I didn't touch the tension, and I didn't have to rearrange and figure out what's going on. So here is let me get this, the first one. Okay, that is beautiful tension, works beautifully. Okay, so it works beautifully, and you can see beautiful stitched piece. And then I'm going to show you the really beautiful job that it did on this blouse. So getting up close, we can see going from one thing to the other. There's the top stitch that I did. I just used the regular stitch for, and you can see the tension is perfect. Here is the way it looks for the seam, and you can see it's top stitched. The edges are finished beautifully. One touch of a button without changing anything around. It is just sewed beautifully. And here is the best part. Even up close here, you can see you have to look really hard to see those stitches for the hem. The hem is sewed beautifully with no problem. And when I'm done, I just go back to quilting. And I have a good time sewing always, but this has made it a lot easier when I want to just stop what I'm doing and do a new project. It also makes it easier if I'm doing an art quilt and I'm very quickly going from fabric type to different fabric types. So there you go. Okay, that's about all that I want to talk about today. I hope that this gives you a good overview of how to go from project to project or function to function, like I say, and you can see what an amazing thing the computer is, and how if you stop it from intimidating you and you breathe and take a real good look, you could actually enjoy this upgrade in your life of having a completely digital sewing machine. I hope that you liked it and it helped you, but also that you press subscribe, and with the little bell that goes off to tell you when I post one. This time there's not going to be a great big break of about a year. The next one is going to talk about the 97D foot, how to use it, and why that also is a great big upgrade for us. And the one after that, in the further future, I'm going to talk actually about making art quilts, especially making leaves. So everybody stay safe and enjoy the process of sewing and quilting especially. Thank you. Bye.